Hey class, it's Mr. Dow. I just want to take you through a few of the steps that you also will have to follow when you start to incorporate non-literary quotes in the body paragraphs of your paper number two. In other words, how you're going to write the research paper. Let me first show you what I have here, and then I'll talk about what I'm going to do. What you're seeing here on this page is this is one of my annotated note sheets. I followed the format. That means that these are all the quotes that I might use from this particular source. Doing an annotated note sheet, I put the works cited information up here. Notice I got it hanging indent. That's all the info in the right order. And then I found three quotes I liked. Each quote, I put a heading on it so I kind of know what it's about. I can do easy indexing. Each quote, I went ahead and put the citation. I had to use Louise Erdrich's biography in quotation marks because there was no author on this source. And that's what you do. You go to the next thing. This was basically just a heading in front of the information. So I put quotes around it because I'm saying basically it's an article title. And that's how I'll cite it if it comes up, if I actually use these quotes. I do have a second source here, also a no author here, but there it is. I got the information for the works cited page right there. And I've got a pretty long quote here that's actually from an interview with Louise Erdrich. So I have to use two sources at least in this paragraph. This is my biographical experience paragraph about the author. And then here I have a blank page where I've started with, there's my topic sentence, which I already had written down because I knew in my outline that I was going to do this. The main conflict in the red convertible is in some ways influenced by Louise Erdrich's own life and cultural background. So the question now is, what quotes do I take, what order I put them in, and how do I set them up and reconnect them, which is kind of what this page in your module is about. Okay, so let's look at them real quick, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I have to write a paragraph. Let's go back to the topic sentence that talks about how Louise Erdrich, her life and cultural background influenced what she wrote about in the red convertible. And I did a decent amount of research. I looked into the facts of her biography. There's really nothing in there that I could find that connects Louise Erdrich directly to the idea of Native Americans going to Vietnam or Native Americans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So I couldn't find that, but I think what you see what I did find was that she clearly understood a lot about Native Americans, particularly the Ojibwe tribe, which she's this is partly her tribe. And kind of the way they live, and so I can focus on how she understood how important the sense of community is to this group of people. I think that's something I can relate to the story. So that's kind of where I'm focusing on here. So let's talk about this first. So here, what about this one? Should I use this quote? The eldest of 7 children, she was born in Little Falls, Minnesota on July 6, 1954. She grew up in Wapaton, North Dakota, where parents taught at the Bureau of Indian Affairs School. This is the kind of note I see a lot on student papers or student bibliography sheets. It seems like, oh, that's great, what a great quote. But really, ultimately, this is useless. Basically, it's a quote that just has some information about that I can find from any encyclopedia. And there's nothing in here that connects her to the story itself. After a while, you read enough about Louise Erdrich, and you realize, well, everybody mentions the exact same thing about her, that she's part Native American, and her parents taught at a Native Indian Affairs School in North Dakota. That comes up so often, I think we can consider it common knowledge, which means I don't have to cite it if I use that information. Now, obviously, if I'm going to just copy this word for word, then I do have to cite it. But I don't need the Louise Erdrich biography to give me this information because I get it from so many other places. So I probably will use some of this, but I'm not going to use it in this order. I'm not going to use all of it. And I don't think I'm going to cite it because I think it is just common information. And it's not really worth wasting a quote on information like this, which doesn't even get to the point of the paragraph. The next thing I have, this one's about how she grew up and everybody around her was always telling her stories about the Ojibwe tribe, which she was connected to through her mother. And she said that's a big part, a significant literary influence. On second thought, I don't know. This would seem like a good quote at the time. I don't know. Again, it's not really directly connected to the story. So I'm kind of thinking, although I understood why I took this quote, now that I'm getting down to writing the paragraph, not so sure it's that helpful. So first quote, get rid of it. Didn't do anything for me. Second quote, I don't know if I'm going to use it. Third quote, this is another guy saying that, look, another guy wrote about her that she understands that that there's a giant tradition about coming home, returning to the land in Native Americans, and that's different than Western literature, which is basically white people literature, which is about going on a journey and finding adventures. That's interesting to me because I'm thinking, yeah, the story is about a Native American who kind of goes off on a journey, which changes him. And when he comes home, he's not really able to ever come home. And I say, okay, that would have some real impact to a Native American person, and that might be something I can say. Yeah, she understood that by because of her early life or its particular childhood. Same thing with this next quote from this interview. I think this is about how, again, she emphasized in her own words how much Native Americans are part of the community, and they don't feel estranged like other people do, which is interesting because that's what happens. Henry kind of goes off on this journey, and then he becomes someone who is estranged. He kind of like loses a sense of connection to the tribe. So I'm not getting into the social issue very much here. Because I just don't have information about it, but I do have information that shows that this woman's life prepared her to write the story because of her understanding of some of the things that are really important in Native American. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm going to do now. Here I am. I got my topic sentence. You already saw it in my outline. After a topic sentence, I generally try to write a little bit of direction before I get to the quote. I don't know which quote I'm going to use yet. Let me just go ahead and explain this a little bit. Main conflict in some ways influenced Louise Erdrich's own life and cultural background. I might bring some of the information to it right now. Erdrich herself is half Native, is half Chippewa through her mother, and grew up in close proximity to a reservation as her parents both taught at a Native at an Indian Affairs school in North Dakota. Again, you might say, "Oh, shouldn't you cite all that?" Well, I didn't copy the information, and I've gotten it from more than one source. And I think, like I said, I think this is basic stuff where people say, "Oh, Abraham Lincoln was born in Illinois." It's like, yeah, we all know that, or it's something you can look up pretty simply. I don't need a source to come up with that. All right, Erdrich was half Chippewa, go in close proximity. I'll just admit the limitations here. Although she did not necessarily have experience dealing directly with Native American vets coming home from Vietnam. Her entire childhood did prepare her to write about issues of community and loss of connection in regards to this group of people. I wanted to stop saying Native Americans. Okay. Not great. I just wrote it just off the top of my head. Let's see. The main conflict in Ray Convertible is in some ways influenced by Louise Erdrich's own life and cultural background. Erdrich herself is half Chippewa through her mother and grew up in close proximity to reservations her parents both taught Indian Affairs School in North Dakota. Although she did not necessarily have experience dealing directly with Native American vets coming home from Vietnam, her entire childhood did prepare her to write about issues of community loss and loss of connection in regards to this group of people. I've explained it. Notice I've explained my topic sentence. I also kind of got some information in there, so it's not a complete, waste. I want to get to a quote now, though. Let's talk about which quote I can use. I have the one here about how people are connected to everything around them, and one here about how Native American stories about coming home, not about going on journeys like as in Western literature. So, all right, I think I will. I'm going to start with this one here. Let's take this. Now I'm not going to take the whole thing. You'll see eventually. I will cut it a little bit. So I'm going to put it here. We're going to get to this quote. Paste it there. All right. Okay. So I have to set up this quote and then reconnect it to show you how we're going to do that with a quote that is not literary in nature. When I said set it up, I said what you should do is kind of tell me the point of the quote and maybe give me some context or validation for why I should believe it. The context of this quote is that this article is an interview basically that was taken from a TV show on PBS where the journalist Bill Moyers interviewed her. So I'm going to get some of that information here, and I'll tell you, and I will summarize the point of this, and that's going to be my setup. So let's see. I should have heard talking about. Uh, in an interview with journalist Bill Moyer on PBS, Erdrich explained, that didn't mean to do that, sorry everybody, her own feelings about, and I'm thinking, what is this, the way that Native Americans depend so strong, so much on, I'll try community, on, I've got community connection up here. All right, I'll say community. I'll work out the repetition later. All right. There it is. So I've set it up. Notice by saying that it's an interview, journalist Bill Moyer on PBS, that's enough to make it a legitimate quote. That's a real journalist and a real show. I don't have to go into much more detail than that. I've given you a little idea of what's coming. Her feelings about Native Americans depending on community. And now I'll just move this up and I'll decide how much I want to keep in here. Native American people puzzle other people. Why don't they just become like the rest of us? What is it so important in their culture? They cling to it so. I think it has to do with the belongingness and the sense of peace that I feel among other Native people, the sense of community. You're in the comfort of a very funny, grounded people who are related to everything that's around them. That's what I really wanted. Who don't feel this is strange, but people often feel. That's why being Ojibwe or Anishinaabe is so important to me. I don't need this line here that it's important to her. It's not about, I'm not talking about her. So I can end there. All right, I want the rest of this. Notice this is now a pretty big quote. I've got 6 lines. That makes it a block quote. I can't put it here. I've got to like bring it down here. And now I've got to indent the entire quote 2 tab spaces. So let's go. I'll just do it 2 and make all of them go over there. Oh man, that's taking away a while. Also remember on a block quote, which is a quote longer with you're going into 5 lines or more, you don't need quotation marks because it's obviously a quote since it's been double indented. It's set off from the rest of the page. That just sucked up most of that page right there. Yeah, I don't need, and I'll keep this there. All right. Okay, so there it is. I have now set up this quote. Now I've got to reconnect the quote. She explained her feelings that depend on community. I'm going to focus here on there's a sense of belonging, and they're connected to everything around them. And one thing I point out is when I get to the reconnection of these quotes, a lot of times what I do is it's easy to bring back the story. If you're unsure, what can I do with this? What can I do with this quote? Go back to the story and connect there. Later I'm going to get some source material where I'm talking about data and numbers, especially when I get to the effects of PTSD. And there I probably don't have to get back to the story as much, but I could. It's just an easy thing to do. So I'll say in the story, we see that Henry definitely begins as someone who is recognizably comfortable in his surroundings. This is shown during the road trip the brothers take in the red convertible and in Henry's relaxed demeanor and let's see, relaxed demeanor and sense of joy. Yeah, all right. Not great. I'm going to redo it. It's just my first shot. This is showing the road trip, brothers taking regular Henry's relaxed demeanor. Now, right now I'm going to say possible. Put in story quote. I've certainly kind of set up a story quote. If I can find one where I can show Henry's a relaxed guy, and maybe I can do that with a little bit of the part where he has the hitchhike girl on his shoulders and he's dancing around pretending he has long hair. Oh, I see that I'm almost done with this particular screencast. I want to continue though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the screencast here. Then I'm going to go on and do another quote here. Let's see the rest of this paragraph, and hopefully this will help you. Okay, so go on to part 2.